bunch of crazy dogs. Have some fun.
Get your popcorn ready.
I'm here so I won't get fined.
It's about I gotta say, it's the stupidest thing in sports.
No. What?
Get your big butt out of here.
Welcome into the Fantasy Guide podcast. And yes, finally, if you're watching on YouTube, you did not have to awkwardly watch our faces as we intro. We're getting this figured out, Steven, eventually, even though Steven immediately got up and started walking away as soon as we said, let's start recording. Oh, there's the music again. Still haven't gotten that part.
The three-peat. Nice.
We'll never end that.
We learn how to podcast and do video on the fly. We don't even practice. We just go for it.
That's what I do as a teacher too. I just walk in that day, decide what I'm teaching in the moment, whatever I feel like. It cannot go smoother. It's a great decision. Never prepare. Jacob, how are you?
Doing good. Happy to be here.
Well, today I am joined by the two gentlemen we've already been introduced here. Steve, too, who has not changed his name. We're doing great YouTube.
Yeah, we're doing awesome.
That would be the proud owner of Fantasy Guides, operator of the Fantasy Guides Instagram account, and runner of fantasyguides.com, not shop.fantasyguides.com. Indeed, the full fantasyguides.com, where you can pick yourself up a pretty little draft guide with all of our rookie information, because the draft is almost a month away. Or are we actually a month away now?
Month away.
We're about a month away, dude. I was buried in code for 6 hours today, and trying to just improve it. You learn some things over the years, and I've been trying to improve the stats and the way they display in the draft guide. And man, I was seeing double vision for sure. But it's going to be worth it, Andrew. You guys are going to be, I'm always reminding you. You're like, oh, when's this guy free agent? I'm like, well, it's in the freaking guide. You can go check. There's going to be more of that stuff where I'm going to give you crap. So
it's just so unbelievable that there's so much information in one spot. I'm like, there's no way Steve has this in the fantasy guide. It's just phenomenal. You guys got to check it out.
I've just been figuring out how to add stuff. So, on the fly, like I said, learning on the fly.
Exactly. Never prepare, Boy Scouts. Just a reminder, we are on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you are finding your podcast that you where you listen, like, subscribe, follow, give us the appreciation we love. And today we're going to talk about some Underdog over and under values. Partnering with Underdog, we'll talk about that a little bit more in a little bit with some promo stuff. But we're going to go into the values for drafters because, of course, we're junkies. We're getting ourselves into drafting already. I've already been through 3 or 4 drafts. And it's March, and that's just how it should be. But before we get there, we had some new rules dropping in the NFL, and of course, they'll have massive ramifications on fantasy football, or not, and we're going to talk about them anyway. So, Jacob, you've been kind of our leader on this with this rules. You've been sending us videos in our group chat, preparing us.
I'm just on Twitter more than everybody else.
And by the way, is there anybody more perfect to have as the holder of rules than Jacob?
It's not.
He's the
perfect.
Yeah. He's like commissioner. He's like it's
a thankless job.
It is.
Well, what kind of rules are getting enforced? There's been a rule change to the kickoff and a rule change to tackles. Let's start with the kickoff. What's it looking like? XFL style, correct?
Yeah, XFL, which everyone's familiar with XFL style kickoffs, right?
No. Yeah.
No, I'm going to need some enlightenment.
So
go Battlehawks.
The kicker's kicking off from the 35, which I think is still in line with what they used to do. So that's where the kicker's at, is not changing. But now there's a landing zone between the end zone and the 20-yard line that the kicker or that the returner can catch the kickoff. And that's where the kicker has to land that ball. If that ball is in that landing zone, they have to return it. There's no more fair catches. The difference here is that the kickoff team is starting at the 40-yard line, and the return team is starting their blockers at the 35-yard line. So everyone's moved up essentially, and you have this weird little landing zone.
It looks ridiculous. These guys are lined up like they're about to just all go punch each other, like directly across from one another, 5 yards apart. So no running start is kind of the point of it, right?
Exactly. No running start. And then so the ball goes at the 35 if it goes out of the back of the end zone. So not good if you're the kicker. You don't want to put the ball in the back of the end zone. It goes to the 40 if it doesn't reach that landing zone at all. So if it hits before the 20-yard line, they're going to get great field position.
Holy moly.
Ball goes to the 20 if it hits in the landing zone and then rolls into the end zone. So the returner is going to want to try to grab it before that happens. And then, like I said, it has to be returned if it lands in that landing zone, which is the 20-yard line to the end zone. So it's going to be weird. It's going to take a lot of getting used to, but That's what preseason football is for.
I think the NFL is figuring out like these hard hits are causing concussions.
Yeah, it's
eventually they'll
the worst part about like football for injuries is that kickoff. So the kickoff's been terrible lately. I mean, most kickers just boot it out of the back of the end zone. So at least we're going to see a lot more returns, but whether that's good or bad, we'll see.
This just in, 300-pound men running at each other full speed and colliding is dangerous for all those involved. Yeah, NFL,
though,
good job.
Andrew, we got to update that. I feel like and no offense, it's going to sound offensive, but every novice person, they always talk about like the 300-pound lineman running at you. That's not what does it. It's the 225-pound Sean Taylor safety.
Yeah.
Those are the actual horrific injuries.
That guy moving 20 plus miles an hour.
Yeah, that can actually hit like a 4.40 at 220. So those are the ones, Andrew. So you got to update that in your.
You go tell Myles Garrett, who's 272 pounds, that he is small. That man is going to lay a wallop on you.
Well, he's one of those exceptions.
But yeah, so big rules change there. That's not going to be big fantasy impact, but we're keeping you updated here because it's going to look really different. I promise you.
I do think
XFL.
There's a chance you see better skill players taking kickoffs if things turn a little bit and there's less contact. So
that could be fun.
May want to add some kicking points to your fantasy league.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, it ends up looking kind of like an offensive line blocking forward because it's not just like guys running in and like these weird angles where you try to make a V or a cone kind of out of it. It's just kind of like a normal blocking scheme. It looks cool. I really thought it was great in the XFL. They did it well. New offside or onside kick, right? So with the onside,
you have to announce it is essentially it, but
and then they set up like normal.
That it's the same. Yeah,
I would say most of the time the onside kick, they know when it's coming. You had the Sean Payton, Super Bowl against the Colts. That random one. Sorry, Andrew, but
that
was actually before you were a Colts fan. So, but yeah, I think that overall they pretty much know.
Yeah. It is usually not a surprise, but we'll get the onside kick back in our lives, and honestly, that's a big win itself. Other rule that I think could have some fantasy implications. We were actually talking about that this morning. There's a new ban against not just the hip drop tackle. It is formally deemed the swivel hip drop tackle. Mm-hmm. So essentially, hip drop tackle is you latch onto a dude's waist, and this usually comes as guys are colliding like at a T-bone angle. This isn't like a head-on collision. Otherwise, you're just hitting head on. Mm-hmm. So you'll see usually a smaller guy get his arms around the waist of a bigger dude typically, and instead of like driving to the ground, like charging your feet, you just grab on, you kind of swing to the back and drop your weight onto his back legs, his ankles. This is where we saw a lot of just gruesome injuries. I know Mark Andrews, I think that broke his ankle. Tony Pollard, that's how he got his terrible injury that debilitated him last season, made him miss a bunch of time the season before. So I think we'll see more yak because this season, because dudes are going to have to tackle just differently. Like this is the tackle you do when you just barely have the angle on a guy that you're coming at diagonally. That's where we see this a lot. So I think yak guys will have a lot of impact. Steven, you think it'll actually have an impact this year?
Yeah, no, I do. I think anytime you have a defender have to think about how they're tackling somebody, that's going to make an effect. So it's like, oh, I can't hit him low. I can't hit him high. I can't hip drop. Like all those things, especially you add them all together. That's a lot. I mean, I feel for these defenders because that's a lot to process in a short period of time. And that just gives another advantage to the offense. So, yeah, I think we are going to see, like you said, more yak, more big plays.
We need more offense. I'm happy.
Yeah, I think they're trying for it. And it's the new rule. So you're going to see it called 15 times in week 1 in like a single game. So it's going to really screw with some defenders. So maybe we'll see some more offense out of that, which is always a good thing for fantasy. Boo defense. Let's just play flag football. Some news, lots of news this last week, and I don't say that sarcastically. Big stuff, like one we missed from a little over a week ago. Alexander Mattison signs with the Raiders. That was from 10 days ago. Fantasy implications: Jacob, go Zamir White, bad Zamir White.
Zamir White 1A, Madison 1B, probably an uglier split than I would like to see, I would imagine, but. Yeah, it's not great if you have Zamir White for Dynasty, if you were pulling for him for best ball, if you'd already drafted him. But I think there's a chance he still leads that backfield, just probably more of a split workload than you were hoping for initially. But they won't draft a rookie now, I wouldn't think. So it's a plus.
Steve, you scared of Madison?
No, I've seen that movie. It's not a good movie. No, I think that could be a good thing for. You know what? I said the same thing last year about Dameon Pierce when they signed Devin Singletary, and I was like, I think that's a good thing for Pierce. Well, I just didn't know Pierce decided to be terrible, and maybe he just can't receive the ball as well or something. But as long as, which I'm not convinced that, I just forgot his name. What's the Madison? Zamir White? I just forgot that, Zamir White. I don't know that he's much better than Madison. I think both are pretty meh running backs. So hopefully, I think the Raiders are just not going to draft a running back, and they're just going to try to. They know they got a lot of bigger pieces that they got to fill. So I think they're just trying to have somewhat of a competent backfield. Mm-hmm. But I like it overall for White.
I think I like Zamir White more than most. The reason I remembered him was getting deep into the weeds last year with rookies. Or he might have been 2 seasons ago. 2 seasons ago, yeah, because he came out with James Cook. White ran a 4.4, and he's a really big, strong guy. So he's at least explosive, where Madison is the most boring runner on the face of it. Like, he doesn't suck. He's just so bad for fantasy because he doesn't do anything cool. You got to do something cool to be good at fantasy. Something.
Yeah, no, I'll give you that. He does have the home run ability. Back when he was drafted, I kind of called him a must-own handcuff for Josh Jacobs owners. Because remember, we had the whole thing with Josh Jacobs, like Josh McDaniels maybe not re-signing him. And we were like, whoa, what's going on with Jacobs? Are they going to trade him or not re-sign him or something? So I liked Zamir White then, but I don't know. I watched some of him last year.
He doesn't catch passes.
Yeah, and he just didn't look like an NFL. He just looked like a plodding backup running back to me. So not overly excited for him, to be honest. But I think right now, what's he going like? I think he's underdog. He's in the 30s
RB
for running back.
32, I think.
Probably fine with it there.
Yeah, not too bad. Bigger news, much bigger news, guys. At least Arthur Smith thinks so, because Arthur Smith is now reunited in Pittsburgh with his best buddy, Cordero Patterson. He signed a 2-year, $6 million deal to go find himself some Arthur Smith in Pittsburgh. And please, dear God, Jacob said this, I hope it means it's for the kickoff rule, because it happened on the same day, because please don't make that a 3-head backfield with Cordero Patterson.
Yeah.
You guys buying Cordero?
You know he's going to get end rounds on the goal line. It's going to happen at least a few times. So,
he's got to be 34 at this point, right?
33. I was literally just looking at that.
Oh my gosh.
I need to know his birthday, though. He's over the hill. I kind of liked him as a fun,
91?
He just had his birthday in March.
Okay. All right.
1991.
Man. Yeah. Arthur Smith, he's that guy where it's like, you might have that family member that keeps screwing up, and you're like, oh, no way they did that again. No way they're going to ask me for money again, or no way they're, all these different things. That's Arthur Smith right now. Like, him signing that, we're like, oh no, he's going to do it again. At least this time it's Najee. It's not Bijan Robinson or something, but
yeah,
if he starts taking George Pickens off the field, it's a syndrome at that point, right?
They don't have anybody else get to that point.
Yeah, and I can see Mike Tomlin totally being that disappointed grandma who shows up to Thanksgiving, just lays the whoop on Arthur. Please, Tomlin, keep Arthur in line for all that is good and holy, for all the crazy that he has kept in. Again, don't understate how Mike Tomlin made Antonio Brown not seem like a freak for so long. We didn't know that CTESPN would be around for a while with Antonio Brown.
He doesn't get enough credit for that, does he?
No, not nearly enough.
No.
They bring up this he's never been under 500 stat or whatever. No, it is Antonio Brown was kept 2. In check.
Yeah.
Yes. Dear
Before
gosh.
The rails fell off.
Dear goodness. And speaking of rails falling off and things falling apart, Steven wanted us to bring up a bit of a moment in our Dynasty League, because obviously everyone cares. But this is like a remember forgiveness and take lessons away for your own league. So some individual in our league, to remain nameless, made a mistake, a completely understanding mistake that anyone could make. And that person may or may not have been trading with another individual with a 25 first involved, and was sitting step back and forth. Somebody, usually an early 25 first, some Neanderthal in our league was doing that. And when they were trading, the other person sent back what looked to be the same trade, but with one player flipped, except for the person who sent the first trade did not notice that the 25 first itself got changed from one that looked like it would be a really late first. So one that looks like it'll probably be the 101 next year. And so completely blew everything up. Like it was no longer a fair value. And so we had to beg for forgiveness. There's like a holdout in the league. This individual might have been myself making this mistake. And I immediately text Jacob, uh-oh.
Oh, I bet.
Uh-oh is not what a commissioner wants to see.
Andrew, were you just like, oh shit? Because not only do you know, like, there's a chance this doesn't get reversed, but also like, I'm never gonna ever hear the end of it.
Yeah. The bad part too is you had sent in our group chat, like, does this look okay? Does this trade look okay? And we're like, yeah, it looks okay. Like, I mean, we don't love giving this other owner the benefit of the doubt here, but it looks okay. We'll see what kind of counters you get. And then trade got accepted, but the first was completely different.
and you know what? To give Andrew some, let's give him some slack here. Andrew took over an orphan that was kind of a crap team. So you've been kind of in rebuild mode. So I think it's fair to say you're not like expecting to take the league by storm this year. Correct.
I did not win a game last year.
Okay.
One.
Yes. But Andrew made the mistake last year of, I think before you knew you were going full tank mode, you did get rid of your first.
Yep. I realized I looked at the top of the league and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm actually not competing with them. I am so I'm a lifelong Cardinal baseball fan. And in my entire life, they've just been middling. And so I've made it a duty of mine I will not have a middle of the road team. My team will either be terrible in picking 101 or they're going to be the best. And so that's what I was shooting for.
It's a good dynasty tip, actually. You don't want to be middle of the road.
No, yeah. You're
not going to make any money there. You're not going to be able to build a better team. Either tank or go all in.
And people hold on to that middle too long. I think they wait too long. So I think you were doing the right move. But I even said like earlier that you and a Dave who I'm sure is listening to this right now. I said at one point, because both of you guys traded away your firsts last year, which ended up being the first and second pick in our league. And I had said to Jacob, I think I did it on our chat, like, is there a way to lock their first?
Lock their
like
full
save
roster.
you from yourselves, you know? Well, lo and behold, Dave's already doesn't have his. So that he's going to probably have a top 2 pick again next year. So he doesn't get Marvin Harrison this year, and whoever next year, he's probably not going to get that person. And then Andrew did it by accident.
But
you still did it. I was like, is there still a way to lock that up?
I need child lock on my trades. So like it has to go through Steve or Jacob and before it actually goes off.
What was that thing? What was the term Britney Spears' dad had for a while where he like made all her finance? What's that?
You lost me.
No, he had like some sort of, I don't remember the name of it. There's a term
power
for
of attorney.
It's kind of like that, but basically she couldn't make any decisions without him. Like he made all her decisions. That's what you need, Andrew, in our league. You need somebody like Jacob or myself to. You can try to do that, but like we'll get an alert on our phone. Andrew just accepted this trade. Do you approve? And then we could have saw, oh no, you have the wrong first. You have your, which probably is going to be the 1-0. It could be the 101. You know.
Hey, I'm on the rise this year. You guys watch out. I just got Jaden Reed, Zay Flowers. You guys are scared. You don't know what to do now. I got my first running back. Anyway,
hey, all I know is I feel like I was the only one in the league or one of the few that had to play you twice. And I was so bummed because I was kind of also not wanting to be in the middle. And I just remember I had you for the last game of the season. I was like, oh, Andrew, if you could just please have one win this week. Because it bumped me. I moved from like the 3rd pick to now I've got the 4th. And you're one spot ahead of me. And I know you're going to snipe me. I know I'm not telling you who I want, but you're going to snipe me.
Marvin Harrison's going to look great on my team, Steven. You're just going to have to sit there and watch it. Anywho. So that covers just the random news. We had to fill something there. Not a lot going on in the league. This is the quiet before the storm because man, once this draft season hits, we're gonna see a trade up in the first round. I guarantee it. There's gonna be rumors galore. I'm ready for it. I'm so excited for it. Before we get there, Underdog is taking care of us. Underdog is giving us something to do in this time of quiet where we have nothing else to do. And Underdog is partnered with us, gave us a promo code so that you guys can get into this too. Underdog Best Ball Fantasy, great time. Join our leagues. Steve put out a post. Join our private draft with us. It's Best Ball. You don't have to set a lineup. You don't have to make waiver wire pickups. You can just join a draft and forget you did it after making the best draft ever. And then whenever you notice at the end of the year that you get a dump of money in your account, you're just going to know, like, it's going to feel great. It's free money. It feels great. Yep. And this promo code will match you. So if you put in $20, boom, you got 40. You put in 50, boom, you got 100. So if you put in promo code GUIDES, that's GUIDES, GUIDES, you'll get your deposit matched up to $100 so that you can get in on pick'ems, on best ball drafts year round. You like fantasy baseball? You like fantasy golf? They got it there at Underdog. So get you guys in on some of that. Steven, I do a good job. You got an Underdog shirt. Look at them.
No, I got it on. No, you did a great job. And like our draft guide, so you get an MVP package, which is Dynasty, Redraft. We basically cover you from January through, well, I guess end of December. We cover you through the whole off season and through the regular season. So, and you guys haven't even seen what I've been up to, Andrew and Jacob, behind the scenes, like this draft guide this year. Ooh,
wait, Steven, did you say if they use the promo code, they get the draft guide and the deposit match?
Yeah, you get both, man. Everybody else is just giving deposit matches. Why not use ours?
What kind of business decisions are we making here? This is irresponsible.
Hey, I've never been a business guy. So I just like to put pretty pictures on the internet.
Take advantage of Steve, and heck, like you said, everyone else is giving out promo codes. Get the free draft guide with it, and then see if you love it, because you will. You absolutely will. But speaking of Underdog, it's early, guys. This is when you want to start drafting. Already, you want to hop in these drafts and start drafting dudes before everything settles. Because by the time August rolls around, everyone will have a take on every player. You'll feel like overwhelmed with information. Here you hop in. There's people that we're about to go over that are way undervalued just because the playoffs happened recently, and those are the overvalued guys. Or in general, just people forgot about how good this dude was because he was hurt or had a little bit of a down season. There's insane values going on right now on Underdog drafts, and we're going to point out some of those undervalues and those overvalues as well. For instance, rookies. I need to pull up the rookie ADPs right now. Like Marvin Harrison's through the roof, but like the running backs, the earliest one is RB39. There's no way there's not an RB in the top 20 who's a rookie whenever the season kicks off. So insane values, got to get in on it. And one undervalued that we're going to start off with is one undervalue that Steven has noticed. Not a rookie, but a young player in himself. Justin Fields finds himself on Underdog as the QB 20. Steven, he's not a starter yet. Where do you think he is? Why is he a value?
Actually, the QB 21 now. I just looked at it before we started. He's already dropped a little bit. Well, obviously there's risk with this one because, okay, Russell Wilson, maybe he does start the entire season. But you know how you guys talked about not sitting in the middle and just playing it safe?
Oh, yeah.
A lot of these, Justin Fields just 2 years ago. I mean, he probably won a ton of people money on best ball drafts when he was going late. He ended up finishing as a top 5 quarterback. I think he could do that this year if he gets the starting job. I think there's a very good chance Russ gets cut before the season even starts. I think they signed Russ because they needed a quarterback. There was no guarantee they were getting Fields, but they still tried and they were able to get Fields. And now they're in one of those situations like, all right, well, sweet. We've got both. And I definitely think they have to value. I don't care what they say. I don't care that Russ has announced a start or whatever. They've also said that they're fine, cutting him. They're not, they don't owe him anything. So I think there's a very good chance Justin Fields starts the entire season. Even if he misses a month of the season, I could still see him finishing as a QB 21 overall, just based on how he plays. He's averaged just under 19 points per game over his past 2 seasons. That's very close to top 5 quarterback numbers every year for the most part. Last year, that would have been about a little bit better than what we saw Jordan Love do as the QB6. That's more than Jordan Love had, Brock Purdy, Patrick Mahomes all had last season. So yeah, I think he's kind of one of those home run hits. You're taking him in round 12. His ADP is in round 12. You're not giving up too much to do it. Take him as like your second or third quarterback in a best ball draft. And yeah, I love his value right there. I imagine it's going to go up as we start to see more rumors and talk about him potentially taking over the starting job.
Jacob, what are you thinking?
That's what will make him such a good value. For reference, he's going after Quentin Johnston in best ball drafts. So
that's a good line to know that it is way too late.
You know what? Jacob, we've been talking about doing more quote posts for the off season or like fun facts. Yeah. That should be one of those.
That's a good one. No, I like him. the incentive information, or not the incentive information, but the trade information on what they're giving up pick wise for Fields came out. So he has to play 51% of the snaps to be worth the 4th instead of the 6th. I don't think they're going to care about that pick. They are what we just talked about in Dynasty that Steelers are. They are a middling team if I've ever seen one. They're never going to tank because the defense is always just going to be too good. The coaching staff is just too good to get that top overall pick, and they're not at a point where they're going to win a Super Bowl right now. So I think they're going to have to make some tough decisions, and I could definitely see a world where Justin Fields is starting week 1.
Yeah, I'm all in on this Quentin Johnston line too. It's like if he's like the line of demarcation, like here's the line on this side, it's a good value. If he's below this and he's a good player, it's way too low. If you're below Quentin Johnston and you can actually play fantasy football, you are too low.
I feel like that's a title almost, like the Quentin Johnston. What'd you say? Demarcation line?
Line of demarcation. A little history word for you.
No, we gotta insert, the Quentin Johnston. I can already see the graphic. Players above him, players below him, and just start circling values. I like that.
I think this is the play because, my goodness, I know there's no receivers there, but Quentin Johnston, he's probably not it. Another value that we are liking so far early in the season is one that Jacob found, one Mr. Tank Dell. And Jacob, I'm not going to lie to you. I jumped on the sheet ready to write this one down. You beat me to it. So tell us why Tank Dell is a value at wide receiver 20. I
love Tank at wide receiver 20. I think the injury that he had, that was a freak injury if I've ever seen one, that I don't think DeMeco Ryans ever going to let happen again. People are just forgetting what happened before he got hurt. And I think mostly what makes this a value is that Nico Collins is going as wide receiver 9. And I think that's too big of a gap for a guy that outperformed him once he actually hit his breakout. I think Stroud can produce 2 top 12 receivers easily if they both stay healthy this year. And I would just rather have the value with Tank than I would with Nico. When that breakout happened in week 9, when he finally got his feet under him and we saw the Tank Dell experience, we saw a wide receiver 1, wide receiver 12, wide receiver 3, and wide receiver 23 finish. He averaged 23.65 points per game in that 4-week span before suffering that injury. For reference, Tyreek Hill averaged 23.7 on the year. So, pretty insane average. Obviously not a pace he was going to keep up. That would have been insane to keep up those numbers. He had 5 touchdowns in those 4 weeks. So it was big time numbers. But the important thing there is that he had 10.75 targets per game in those 4 weeks, and Nico had 8.3. So a pretty significant difference in target differential there. I like the upside more Tank. And if you're drafting for best ball, I'm fine with the volatility that Tank might offer you versus Nico. His spike weeks are going to be as good as anyone else's in the league, and I'll happily take him. What is it? It's late 3rd. Yeah, mid to late 3rd round right now. So happy to take him there.
Steven, what are your feelings on Mr. Tank Little Guy Dell?
No, I like it. That offense, you got to think that Stroud's going to at least, do similar things that he did last year. Mm-hmm. They were just starting to get a rhythm last year. A couple other things that are just, if I want to compare it to other wide receivers, I like the fact that this team plays in a dome. They play fast. He's fast. They play in a dome. They also got opponents against, other opponents, Dallas, Minnesota, the Colts, not the Jaguars, but the Colts.
Dome games.
That's 7 dome games, So.
And the Colts secondary sucks. It's so bad.
Yeah. So I'm excited for this offense. It's going to feel almost like a basketball team. I think they're going to just be passing a ton. I think Stroud's I think he has the potential to get close to 5,000 passing yards. So I like that one.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tank Dell, it's so fun to watch that little guy skirt around too. And he is so good with his hands and moving his body that even though he is the same physical size as me. I'll stand up here, guys. You don't want a receiver that is built like this. Look at this hoodie. It looks huge on me. It's a medium. All right. So this guy actually is the same size as me, and he is playing in the NFL. So, and like you said, his injury was crazy. It's a broken leg. That's just going to happen.
I know. He was blocking at the goal line. He shouldn't have been doing that. DeMeco's not going to put him in that spot again. There's just no way you let that happen.
Right.
No. And then that very reason is why I have a much larger wide receiver as my value that I found that I'm liking. I flip-flopped through like 3 different guys. So I have a lot of honorable mentions to bring up after this because my next one's a running back. But T. Higgins is a value at wide receiver 28. I can't believe my eyes right now whenever I'm looking at some of these wide receivers after like in the wide receiver 3 range. I just want to read a few of these names off. So wide receiver 24 is DK Metcalf. That's fine. Whatever. But Devontae Smith was going in the 2nd round last year. Cooper Kupp, wide receiver 26. We would never have guessed Cooper Kupp was outside the top 24 wide receivers. We have Keenan Allen, wide receiver 27. I think that makes a little bit of sense. T. Higgins, wide receiver 28, like I said. Amari Cooper was just a top 24 wide receiver. George Pickens is probably going to fly up the board. Like, why are all of those guys wide receiver 3s right now? And I guess it's just to the guys in front of them, but when I saw T. Higgins there, I knew I had to jump on it. So here's my reasons for T. Higgins. Reason number 1, and I could just mic drop, walk away after this. Other than last year when he and Burrow were both hurt like the entire season, he's literally never finished worse than wide receiver 28. Like, that's it. Like, walk away. Like, he's literally never done worse than this. And we have, and he did that wide receiver 28 season in his rookie year with rookie Joe Burrow, who was also out again for half the season. So T. Higgins is just better than this. He is a top 15 real life wide receiver. He's a really good fantasy wide receiver. He always has been. Sure, I tried to find a guy who had like wide receiver, like top 5 value, like could be a wide receiver 5 or like 05 overall or better. That's not T. Higgins, but he's going to at least be a wide receiver 28. Everything else is ceiling, and it's free. And I think that's how you can say the same for a lot of those guys in the same range. Again, Joe Burrow missed 7 games last year. T. Higgins missed 5, and he left early in 3, other than the ones he missed outright. So, like, his stats are just completely off last year. You have to throw them all out. Steven, what do you think of T. Higgins?
I just needed to see that one replay he had where he, like, was near the goal line, and he did that, like, backwards. He was, like, palming the football. You remember that one?
Oh, like to reach over the pylon?
That was, like, one of the most insane, like, athletic, and just showed his size and just, physically dominant kind of wide receiver. I do think that Joe Burrow does have the potential to support 2 top 12 wide receivers. Like, it's not something I would bet on happening, but he absolutely can support 2. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I like this one because I think he could hit that kind of upside. What
are your thoughts there, Jacob?
I like him. He's a great value, and I think his value might be good right now because people are worried that he might not play. He might hold out. We don't see that happen. It doesn't. We've seen the threats before. He's either going to get traded or he's going to play on the franchise tag. It doesn't benefit him to sit out. He's going to lose money if he does that. So I wouldn't be worried about him sitting. I think worst case scenario is that he's the wide receiver 2 for Joe Burrow, which is great. And best case scenario, he actually gets traded and is the alpha on another team. So.
Yeah, I mean, Drake London. Think about Drake London last year. He was a wide receiver like 2-3 range, like in drafts, and now he's Kirk Cousins, and he's gonna go potentially top 12 wide receiver. That could happen with T. Higgins. He could just find himself in a situation where he is the wide receiver 1 who just got paid. It could happen. Steven, you're throwing a thought in there.
Yeah.
No, I like him as the value. No, I didn't have an additional thought to say to that. So
I've left you speacious, and that's
how I know I did a good job. You did. You threw me off.
Alrighty, we each have 2 not wide receiver, a lot of wide receivers, but overall underdog values. So Steven, your second one is again another guy who I was ready to pull up the spreadsheet. This is on me for not getting on there earlier.
I'm usually late.
Write him down.
You are.
I'm usually late to this stuff.
I mentioned him last week at some point, but Steven, please talk about my guy, Christian Kirk. I just traded for him in a different league. Wide receiver 34 now in ADP. And this name sounds less sexy as other ones we've been talking about. So why is Christian Kirk a value at wide receiver 34?
Well, last year he was the wide receiver 33 in points per game. He missed 5 games. He finishes the wide receiver 46 playing in just 12 games with Calvin Ridley, who had 123 targets himself playing last year. Ridley, as we know, is gone, and they replaced him with Gabe Davis, who doesn't get targeted. Gabe Davis is fun. He makes big plays, but he's never had more than 92 targets or 48 receptions in any season. I think that he makes things much easier for Christian Kirk. I think he opens up the field. I actually am tag teaming this, Andrew. So I guess if Kirk wants to be your guy, I'm also throwing in Evan Ingram, because Evan Ingram's going as a tight end 8. He was the tight end 2 last year. I think this also helps Evan Ingram. So I think Evan Ingram's a good value at tight end 8 right now. I actually like the Gabe Davis signing as a football move for the Jaguars. I think it's going to open up that offense, kind of like it has done with Stephon Diggs in Buffalo. I love Kirk and Ingram right now, and I've taken them in a couple of best ball drafts. I imagine, especially Kirk. Actually, I imagine both their ADP is going to continue to rise in best ball drafts, because I think people are like, whoa, they're just valued too low.
Yeah. Unless they end up with some top tier rookie wide receiver that we're just not foreseeing right now, which is unlikely with the way the draft board's set up. And he's a screaming value at wide receiver 34.
Yeah. Who were we talking about them taking the other day at 17?
AD Mitchell.
Or like Brian Thomas.
Yeah.
Thomas Jr.
Yeah, I thought we had talked about somebody else. Well, I think maybe we talked if Adunze could fall that far, which I don't think he will.
Yeah.
But,
he'd be perfect there.
I do think that would be a good landing spot. And if that did happen, I don't know if
he's
it's
going to become even more of a value.
Yeah, he might. Yeah, because he'll probably drop even more. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
But I had it pulled up and I just lost it. But he was a top 12 wide receiver 2 years ago before Calvin Ridley entered the fold. Christian
wide
Kirk
receiver 11 in 2022 and wide receiver 26 wide receiver 26 before he even made the leap when he was in Arizona still.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think Christian Kirk's a good player. I don't think he's a great player, but I think he's a good player, and I love his value right now.
Absolutely agree. And like I said, absolutely wanted to snatch him up. He's got a good quarterback where they're going to have to throw the ball and a good offensive system. And heck, guys, don't overthink these things. We've just seen Christian Kirk do this before in this exact situation. It just makes a ton of sense. And I think another guy who makes a ton of sense being a good value is Josh Jacobs. And look at that. Shout out Packers Wire for getting us a nice little jersey swap there.
Nice.
Josh Jacobs finds himself as a value at RB10. And to give some clarification, I looked at this and was like, RB10, that's not a great value. It's a top 12 wide receiver or running back, right? RB1, like, blah, 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 blah. Well, running backs and Underdog get pushed way down. Like 24 wide receivers go before the 12th running back goes. So, Jacob, why do you think Josh Jacobs is a value at RB10?
Yeah, well, I think RB10 is his floor, and then you add in that he's actually being drafted early round 4. So just wild how far running backs fall there. You have the number 1 running back for the Green Bay Packers that they like to run the football. We've seen Aaron Jones have a ton of success in those Packers offenses, which granted those were led with Aaron Rodgers, but I don't think Jordan Love is as big as a fall off as we thought he was going to be. He's going to be able to support competent fantasy assets. And then Josh Jacobs on a much worse team last year from weeks 1 through 12 was the running back 4. That's before the bye week, and that excludes week 13 when he got hurt. But he was killing it for the Raiders. Only had 6 touchdowns in that span, but that was on a much worse offense. This Packers team is much better. I think he can put up double-digit touchdowns in this offense. He does that, stays healthy all year. I don't think there's any reason he can't surpass RB10 expectations.
100% with Josh Jacobs. I mean, good player, good offense, good quarterback, good play caller. Okay, yeah, no, that's the kind of running back you want. And he's going to play all 3 downs. Just like, don't overthink this. Yeah, like you said, RB10, 4th round. That's usually the dead zone right there. And usually the dead zone kicks off with like the running back 13, 14. But just with the way wide receivers are being pushed up right now, it's just the dead zone is starting with these higher level guys. So it's not the dead zone like we normally think of it. Steven, any thoughts there on Mr. Josh Jacobs?
Yeah, is he going much different than like where Alexander Madison went last year in drafts? It's probably similar.
A little bit earlier probably, but round-wise is close.
Yeah, I think initially I did the same thing. I thought RB10, I could see that. That feels about right. But when you look who's in front of him, okay, let's say you want to take Jalen Hurts, that's fine. It depends on your strategy. I don't mind taking like a Jalen Hurts maybe, or Josh Allen before him. But Devonta Smith is going ahead of him. Yeah. DK Metcalf going ahead of him. Malik Neighbors going ahead of him. Even Sam Laporta, Jalen Waddle. Some of these guys, I'd probably feel a lot more comfortable with Josh Jacobs' floor and ceiling than some of those guys. So Yeah, I wish I could disagree so far. Maybe we need to pick more next time because so far I'm in agreement. But no, I like that one as well. I do think RB10 does feel, if he stays healthy, that does feel like his floor.
Yeah, I mean, if you want me to play devil's advocate, I'll say AJ Dillon's still there, and it's the Packers. They're going to split the backfield, but
that sounds like a compliment to Jacobs.
yeah, at cost, like my goodness, like this is a really good situation for Jacobs. That's why you're saying it's hard to argue, yeah, because these ADPs aren't refined, but you can still enter the drafts that make you tons and tons of money right now. So jump on in, use that promo code again, promo code guides, GUIDES. Yes, that's how you spell guides. GUIDES guides. Go guides. I need help. Another running back that I think is a huge value right now. And I think, again, this is one of those more under the radar guys. I've just been like, why aren't more people hopping in on him? Is Javonte Williams. I have it marked there at RB10. It's not. It's RB29 right now. He's going at RB29. And again, when I go to look for values on Underdog, I start off with who is just at their floor. So if I'm wrong and the lower part of their range of outcomes hits, who am I going to at least get my cost back? And that's Javonte Williams. Last year, coming off a torn ACL, LCL, PCL, he tore up his important papers. He tore everything. Everything was just torn on this man. And he ended up he wasn't supposed to play. Like Steven was going on and on and on in the offseason leading in about how we cannot draft Javonte. Yeah. He will not play this year. There is completely ludicrous that he will, but we kept getting these reports like, oh, no, he is. Sure enough, he played. Sure enough, he played a lot at the beginning, looked hurt, stopped playing towards the end of the season. Steven, what do we do every year? We draft the guy the year after they tore their ACL. True. 2 years removed. And that's Javonte Williams this year. Well, guess what? In that really cruddy year where he was recovering from his ACL, LCL, PCL, again, divorce papers all ripped up, he was the RB29. He's being drafted as the RB29 now. So this is him in a bad offense. Russell Wilson throwing in the towel. Sean Payton, first year there. Javonte Williams was that dude in fantasy drafts. Like he was going to be an RB1 before this happened. He was going to be drafted as such. He was being drafted as the RB23 last year, Steven, in the first week of September. Coming off of the ACL, and now he's 2 years removed. And he's the RB29. And he's ready to hop in. Sure, there's a little bit of a committee there, but they're going to run the snot out of the ball. It's Sean Payton. He catches passes out of the backfield. I did this last year with James Cook. You just go down to RB30 range. Remember, there's 32 teams in the NFL, and the starting running back for a team is usually a good bet. This is a good one. On a good team's RB29. I don't see how this doesn't hit. Jacob, I'll let you start. What are your thoughts here?
I would love to disagree, like Steve said, but RB29 is a hard spot to call someone an overvalue. So, yeah, it's a great value. Like you said, there's 32 guys 32 running backs starting in the league, and him at 29, just that feels insane.
I don't think James Cook last year. It's giving me a little James Cook vibes a little bit.
And you mentioned committee, but I think this is more of a Thunder Lightning situation because Jaleel is not a between the tackles guy. So I think we see most of the volume go to Javonte, most of the goal line work go to Javonte, and those are the valuable touches you want. So, yeah, I don't see how he doesn't outperform that draft cost unless he just gets hurt again. But 2 years removed, like you said, so there's optimism to be had.
Yeah, honestly, do you view him much differently than like Joe Mixon going into this year?
Yes.
I mean, Joe Mixon's in a better offense.
Yeah.
He's in a better offense, but I guess it kind of depends on what we think of Dameon Pierce too. And I guess I'm just going off of competition. He's going so much later than Joe Mixon is kind of what I'm getting at. Yeah. He's going after Austin Eckler, who makes me nervous. He's going after the Pittsburgh committee.
Where's James Conner going? I feel like it's kind of like that.
He's going RB22, pick 81. Javante's pick 95. It does kind of feel like he should be going, I would say, at least where Najee Harris is going, and you're getting him a full round later. So I would say that he's probably a good round and a half of a value, which is great for these drafts.
Yeah.
100%. I just love Javonte. I don't know why everyone got off the hype train. Well, I get why last year we did, but now all of a sudden it's not picking back up. Come on, Denver. Bad vibes and all, but we need to get back on that.
Well, and especially knowing the running back class that's coming in not being particularly strong, giving him a chance to not get overtaken by like 4 or 5 running backs like we've seen in other draft classes.
Yeah, there's not a running back who's going to come in this year that's better than Davante Williams. Before we move on, like I said, I just also really love Cooper Kupp where he's going right now. I believe it's wide receiver 26. Again, that dude being outside the top 24 wide receivers, baloney. Get out of here. He was good to end the year, just dealing with injury. Matthew Stafford, Puka Nacua is still there. It's going to be a good offense.
I almost picked him, and because I could see what we saw with last year with Keenan Allen, right? I mean, he stayed healthy for most of the season and just was one of the biggest values last year. I could see Cooper Kupp. Would we be shocked if he put in a season like we just saw Keenan Allen put in?
No, absolutely not. And it's another guy who's the year after a big injury. So get in on those guys. God, I'm also just looking at these running backs. RB29, again, Javonte Williams. RB28. Oh, God, I just lost it. Great podcasting. Raheem Mostert, that one I can kind of get with maybe. But DeAndre Swift.
That's crazy. There's another value.
Better. Austin Eckler, RB26. Heck no. Jalen Warren's the RB2 in Arthur Smith land. Nick Chubb just broke everything.
Oh, that was the other one I was going to bring up was Nick Chubb. Like,
do you think he's going. Value?
We don't need to talk about
No. Going ahead of Javonte.
That's Nick name Chubb's value right there.
There's no way Nick Chubb's playing. No way. I said this last year about Javonte, at least starting the year, so I could not know what I'm talking about. But I mean, modern medicine will have come a long way if I see Nick Chubb on the field.
That dude's kneecap was facing the wrong way. That's just all that needs to be said there. Another great value, Jaden Reed and every single Packers wide receiver. Jaden Reed's going the earliest at wide receiver 33. Jordan Love threw for 4,000 yards and 32 touchdowns last year. Someone's going to catch those, and they're good receivers. So wide receiver 33, again, there's 32 teams in the NFL. Do a little math there. That's a little too late for my liking. But where there's undervalued guys, that means there's also some overvalued guys. And so let's get negative. Again, they're not losers, as we like to point out here, family podcasts. They're just for fallers. They're overhyped, too much love. And we're going to start off with one man who's getting too much love. A guy Steve has identified, and I truly can't agree more with this. DJ Moore, overvalued at the wide receiver 11 this year, coming off a wide receiver 6 season, though, Steven. So why is he an overvalue?
Well, and when I checked later today, he already dropped a spot to wide receiver 12. So I think we will see his ADP start to drop, and then he might get to a point where I feel better about him.
Why do you think it's dropping?
I think that we're still, 10 days since Keenan signed, maybe. I think it takes a little bit for that to adjust. But I like this offense. I'm actually kind of optimistic that, I'm not going to say that because we know they're taking Caleb Williams. I don't think we can expect to see what CJ Stroud did this past year, but they're setting it up in a way where he is going to have a hard time not having some success. But I still think Keenan Allen, I know he turns 32. I want to say a couple weeks. Keenan Allen does turn 32. So he is definitely older and he's had a hard time staying healthy. But while they're playing together, I'm not convinced Keenan Allen wouldn't be the higher target earner. At the very least, it's going to be close. Keenan's had a target share above 25% in 6 of the past 7 seasons. He's the best competition DJ Moore has ever had. Rookie quarterbacks historically don't support more than one wide receiver 1, and even one wide receiver 1's hard to come by. We went back to 2012. Andrew and I did, and the only ones we found, Reggie Wayne with Andrew Luck in 2012 finished top 12. DeAndre Hopkins with Deshaun Watson for the games when Watson was healthy his rookie year. He ended up tearing his ACL halfway through the season. And then this past year, Davante Adams with Aiden O'Connell and Nico Collins with CJ Stroud. Now, if we're convinced that, if you think DJ Moore is the guy, the wide receiver 1, maybe he can do it. But even then, I think it's going to be hard for him to do. So I'm not touching him right now as a top 12 wide receiver. I don't think he needs to go much further down. Maybe I'd like to see wide receiver 16 is where I'd love to see him drop, and then I'd feel more comfortable taking him. But I think top 12 with some of the guys that are going around him, I don't know. I just not feeling it.
Yeah. I won't be able to rank him top 12 when we do our redraft rankings. There's just no way, especially once we throw some rookies in there and look at the other guys that are going in that range. It's going to be hard to justify that price with a rookie quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, some guys going ahead of him Garrett Wilson and Marvin Harrison Jr., you might be like, well, what have those guys done? I think we're all still optimistic. Garrett Wilson, I think we all think he's a stud. We're assuming Aaron Rodgers will be good to go. He was almost good to go at the end of last year. If you wanted to draft him over Marvin Harrison, maybe. But I don't know. Stephon Diggs is still going after
Drake
DJ
London.
Moore. Even Drake I feel better with. I feel better with Stephon Diggs.
Ayuk there too.
Yeah, this is a range where it gets a little bit murky, but I just think top 12 is a little high playing in Chicago with a rookie quarterback with Keenan Allen on the roster.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. Those guys you talked about just were all the only dudes in their offense. So then that's just not the situation. Cole Kmet's there too. DeAndre Swift is going to catch passes out of the backfield. This isn't just the DJ Moore offense.
But don't forget Gerald Everett.
I'm going
to also there.
I'm going to forget Gerald Everett, and I'm going to go on to this next guy instead. Jacob's overvalue that he found himself on Underdog is the guy going right after him. Wide receiver. I think those guys actually flip-flopped. So this is now the wide receiver 11. We have him as the wide receiver 12.
Even worse.
Davante Adams, the Las Vegas Raiders, catching passes from, pick your poison, Jacob, either Aiden O'Connell or Gardner Minshew?
I'd rather pick Gardner, but either way, I'm not feeling good about it. It's mid to late round 2 for Davante Adams, and that is way too rich for my blood. He was the wide receiver 17 in points per game last year. So where does this bump come from? I'm not really sure. I don't see anyone starting all 17 games for the Raiders next year. I think they bring in a rookie, and I think it gets murky throughout the season, similar to how it did last year. So I just don't know how it gets any better for him from what he saw last year with a wide receiver 17 finish. So there was only 4 weeks he was top 12 last season, and there were 5 weeks where he finished outside the top 45. He was super inconsistent and volatile. It was not good with the quarterback changes that were there. And now he's 31 years old. And I did some digging there. The past 10 seasons, we've had 6 instances in the past decade where 4 different receivers have finished in the top 12 that were 31 or older. 3 of those guys were Larry Fitzgerald. You had Keenan Allen last season, Julian Edelman, and Jordy Nelson. All those guys had very, very competent quarterbacks, especially for fantasy purposes. Davante Adams just doesn't have that. So there's a 5% chance in the last 12 or 10 years where he can have that top 12 finish being 31 or older. And I don't love it with the quarterbacks he's got with him. It feels gross. I don't like it. It's a bad team, but he's a great player.
Okay, I'm actually going to hop in here and disagree. I think it is one of those situations where it feels gross, but I don't think it is gross. Go back last year.
Gross.
It does. It feels awful. And last year, I played Davante Adams agnostic. There are some players who I recognize they exist, but I just don't believe in them. And if they're on my draft board, I don't even look at them. Their names aren't there, essentially. And I made that mistake. And Davante Adams was a top 12 wide receiver last year. With just some terrible, terrible quarterback play. Gardner Minshew is better than Aiden O'Connell, at least for fantasy purposes. And he helped support Michael Pittman to a wide receiver 13 season. I love me Michael Pittman. Davante Adams at 31, I still think he's better than Michael Pittman. It's just going to be PPR. That is the only reason why Davante Adams, I think, could put up a wide receiver 1 season and be justified, albeit the ceiling isn't there. He's not that's probably why you don't draft him here. Guys who do have ceiling who are being drafted right next to him, Drake London, their ceiling. Brandon Ayuk, their ceiling. Stephon Diggs, their ceiling. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. I drop him a couple spots. I'm not yelling at anyone if they're drafting Davante Adams at wide receiver 12. Steven, split the vote. What are you thinking?
I was hoping you'd call on me first because I was going to say everything you just said. Sorry.
There you go. Sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. We'll look back at this at the end of the year when old man Davante Adams finishes outside the top 12.
I mean, he did wide receiver 15. I just don't think there's a massive floor. But go ahead, Steven.
No, he finished 10th last year. I do think that the mustache did upgrade at signal caller in Vegas. Aiden O'Connell's mustache was hard to look at.
Huge.
He looked like a super trooper guy. Whereas now Minshew's fun. And like you said, Michael Pittman finished 13th, wide receiver 13, you said. So yeah, I don't think, again, ceiling's not there, but I don't think you're going to get burned by Davante Adams if you take him there. I think he's pretty safe. I probably feel better about him than DJ Moore, like a Drake London might have a higher ceiling, but I probably still feel maybe a little bit safer with Davante Adams. The guy's just a stud. So yeah, I'm okay The age worries me a little bit, but he's going to be the same age as Keenan Allen was last year. So yeah, I'm fine with that one.
Jacob, I like it. I love the little. I had to play devil's advocate. I saw the opportunity to hop in there and mess with you.
The numbers are not on his side. That's really the point to it.
Yeah, absolutely agree there. It's just kind of like I just don't think there's a giant floor. But one guy I think who's going really like right next to him, who I do think there is a bit of a more of a floor to drop out of because he's not on a football team yet, guys, but he's being drafted as if he is. We have Mr. Marvin Harrison being drafted as the wide receiver 10. Say that again. Guy not in the NFL being drafted as the wide receiver 10. Don't get me wrong. We were leading the charge of Bijan is RB, top 5 RB. Like he is worth every penny last year. Now, that actually didn't even pay off all that well. Although I think we played the right process. Arthur Smith just decided to shove one up ours. I'm not against.
Well, Arthur Smith bucked every trend that we've seen with top 10 running backs. Running backs drafted in the NFL draft that high always get used except for last year. So you're right. We did have the right process.
Exactly that. And so I'm not like against like rookies can't perform. They absolutely can. I've got some rookies who did perform. There's some guys who were named Puka Nacua, just had the best wide receiver rookie season ever. And I think that's where a lot of this hype is coming from right now is this Puka Nacua stuff that just happened. He was the wide receiver 4. We had Jamar Chase, in 2021. He was the wide receiver 5, had a phenomenal season playing alongside Joe Burrow, though, mind you. We had Jalen Waddle that same season be wide receiver 13, so right in this range. But guys, Jalen Waddle it wasn't a good offense. He just got passes because he was the only guy in town, and he PPR'd his way to that massive, massive success. So I don't think I'm really tricking anyone there. Jamar Chase, Puka, absolutely. But Drake London, absolutely hyped receiver. He ended up going in a bad spot and found himself as the wide receiver 31. Chris Olave found himself in a bad spot. He was wide receiver 12. Hyped rookies are talented. That doesn't mean they're going to be good. Think about guys in bad situations. Garrett Wilson was wide receiver 21 his rookie year because he had a crappy situation. DJ Moore, his whole career before last year was in terrible situations, even though we knew he was good. It doesn't matter if he's good, if he's in a bad spot. What happens if he's a Patriot? What happens if they just buck the trend and just take the receiver at 3, which isn't unreasonable? Jacoby Brissett and in a rookie wide receiver in the top 12. What if he's a Giant? And who's the quarterback there? Probably Daniel Jones. Like that one's not as terrible, but we're gonna take him ahead of guys like Davante Adams, DJ Moore, Brendan Ayuk, Drake London, Stephon Diggs, Rashee Rice, Debo. No, the ceiling's there. Absolutely. That floor is a wide receiver 3. And you just can't lose your draft in the top like that. Steven, what are your thoughts?
This is why you do best ball drafts. I think in a couple of best ball drafts, you take him.
Sure.
For the hope that he lands in Arizona or Los Angeles with the Chargers. If he is in either of those spots, I don't feel that bad about him. I think we've seen the history Kyler Murray has with wide receivers. We've seen we know what Justin Herbert can do. I do think it's high. I think the ADP is high, but I don't know. I could see if he lands in one of those 2 spots, a month or 2 from now, we're looking at him versus like DJ Moore, like the target competition. I like it much better for Marvin Harrison. He is one of those next level prospects. He's not quite a Calvin Johnson, but he's like a Jamar Chase type prospect. And I don't know. I'm kind of 50-50 on this one. I don't have a strong take on it. I think it's a little high, but I could see that ceiling hitting.
I don't mind the draft cost either. I think the upside is just, it's too good. The volume is going to be great no matter where he goes. I feel like where the odds are landing right now is Arizona. And if he's the alpha in Arizona, like wide receiver 10 is a great cost. I see all the upside there with him and Kyler as the duo there. And then what if he falls, one more spot and goes to the Chargers? And then you really love wide receiver 10.
I just think the Chargers are trading back, and talks are the Cardinals might trade back. It's just like it's a coin flip if he ends up on one of those 2 teams. And if he does, if you miss, dude, you just lost your first round pick, like or your early second.
Yeah.
Yeah, if he lands in New York, Andrew's throwing his headset off and being like, "Told y'all, told y'all." Like that would be a nightmare for so many reasons. It would be like the Saquon Barkley movie all over again.
Absolutely. And don't get me wrong, I'm drafting Marv probably in our dynasty league, or and just for everyone. I want everyone to have a good time. I'm a happy guy. Alrighty, I want good things for Marv. I'm here for you, Marv, but the bad things can happen. Any passing thoughts, any honorable mentions? You guys are just itching at you to tell the friends here listening.
Well, I'll start, Jacob, because before we started the podcast, somebody that kind of reminds me of the Davante Adams take you just had could be Derrick Henry.
Mm-hmm.
Going as what
RB11.
RB11.
Yeah,
I really like Derrick Henry. I still think he's just one of those guys you throw
RB8 last year with Tennessee.
I think you maybe just throw out some of those. Well, we've never seen, the RB, 30-year-old running backs. We haven't seen those do anything since Adrian Peterson, and even he was a little bit of an outlier at that point. Like you have to go way back to the Barry Sanders types running backs to see like good seasons from a 30-year-old running back, but I do think he's an old school running back. I know the offensive line's not as good as it was prior to free agency for the Ravens, but I don't care. I think Lamar Jackson, they're going to do the read option still. There's going to be wide open running lanes for him. I think his floor is 15 rushing touchdowns. If you could tell me Derrick Henry's going to get, let's just say 15 touchdowns, because he'll probably get a couple of, little screen passes that he turns into big touchdowns. He's going to get 15 touchdowns. He's definitely going to finish top 10 if he does that. So he doesn't have like maybe top 3 upside, but I think close. I think he's got top 5 upside.
It feels safe.
It does.
It feels very safe. I like it. I think Trey McBride's another good value to bring up. It's not super flashy. He's tight end 3, so it's not like, I don't think he's necessarily being drafted at his floor, but I think tight end 1 is well within the realm of possibilities for someone like him. Him and Sam Laporta are going to be battling that out for hopefully the next decade. Fingers crossed, right? And maybe Kyle Pitts slips in there, but I just think Trey McBride going to see a lot of volume for the Cardinals. He's being drafted. Where is it? Just before Jaden Reed, it looks like, and after
50,
after guys like, I don't know, Zay Flowers, who I trust the volume McBride's going to get more if I want a consistent tight end on my team. So I like that value there.
I for some reason feel more comfortable with him than Mark Andrews, who's going right after him.
Yeah,
I don't know if you guys feel the same way. He just looked like he arrived last year.
Yeah.
And Kyler Murray, there was a couple games. I mean, Pittsburgh, who was at one point good against the tight ends last year. I watched that game, and it was like every contested catch, he was open, he was contested, everything was going towards him. Now, if you get a Marvin Harrison, that's going to obviously pull some targets away from McBride, but maybe it opens him up a little bit more. I agree. He's an excited tight end. So, and that's kind of where I don't mind taking tight ends. I don't like getting the late round tight ends too often in these drafts because it's hard to hit on them. So
mid-range, avoid mid-range if we learned anything the last couple of years.
Absolutely. Yeah. The last thing you want is to be drafting tight end 8 to tight end 12. Just don't have a tight end. Go through your draft. Don't draft one. Be stubborn. Don't take one.
Don't draft Darren Waller.
Yeah. Stay away. Might retire.
I think he was going around this ADP, and I feel way more comfortable with Trey McBride at pick 50 than I even did last year with Waller at pick 50, because I knew Waller was a risk.
Yeah, I mean, Waller's like, I took him in a league in one of my drafts because I think he's like the tight end 35 or something right now. So, that's a good value.
Yeah.
I've got him hearted on my watch list right now, or whatever, starred on my watch list, because I can't quit him at tight end 31.
You can't give him up, Steve. You're addicted to Darren Waller.
Yeah.
Alrighty, well, that will do it for us on this podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Of course, we always appreciate it. Again, if you want to join us, play on those underdog drafts. Again, promo code GUIDES, GUIDES. Someone give me like a ding or a bell in the background. Guides, promo code GUIDES on Underdog. They'll match your deposit up to $100, and you'll get yourself one of those pretty draft guides just for fun. Just if anything, just to have it on the stash on the side. Again, follow the main account there at Fantasy Guides on Instagram, on TikTok. Find us on Twitter. Find us on YouTube. Subscribe, like. Find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Get in there. Show some love to us. But that'll do us for now.
Tuning us out.